The knock came just as the sun was slipping behind the desert hills, that fragile moment when the sky turns the color of old copper and the wind carries secrets. Instead of sound, and Jacob Cole, cowboy, widower, and a man long, married to solitude, froze, mid-step inside his isolated ranch house, because nobody knocked on his door out here, not strangers, not travelers, not even trouble, and yet the knock came again, firm, deliberate, as if whoever stood outside knew exactly who lived here and had waited years for this moment. And when Jacob finally pulled the door open, the sight before him unsettled him more than any gunfight or dust storm ever had, because standing there was a woman who looked carved from the desert itself, her dark braided hair falling over leather-clad shoulders, her eyes sharp and ancient, carrying a depth that made time feel thin, her clothing marked with Apache designs, her posture proud yet weary. And before Jacob could speak, before he could ask who she was or why she had crossed miles of unforgiving land to reach his door, she spoke his name in a voice low and steady, as if tasting it, and that alone stole the breath from his chest because no one out here knew his name. Not anymore. Not since the past he buried with his wife and the blood-soaked choices of his youth. And as the desert wind whispered through the cracked earth behind her, she said she needed his help. Not as a cowboy, not as a gunman, but as a man who once made a promise he never meant to keep. And Jacob felt the weight of a life he had tried to forget crash back into him, because he recognized her now, not from memory but from guilt, an Apache woman tied to a night long ago when he chose survival over honor, when he rode away from a burning camp and told himself there was nothing he could have done, and yet here she stood, living proof that the past does not die quietly. And as he invited her inside, every instinct screamed danger while something deeper, something broken, whispered that this knock was not an accident but a reckoning. And as she sat across from him by the fire, and finally told him why she had come, why she had searched for him across deserts and decades, Jacob Cole realized that her request was not just impossible, it was the kind that destroys men who say yes and haunts those who say no, because she was asking him to return to Apache land he once helped betray, to face men who would kill him on sight, and to help her save a child whose blood carried both their worlds, a child hunted for what he represented. And as the fire cracked and shadows danced across the walls, Jacob understood in that moment that his quiet life had ended the second she knocked. And if this story already has your heart racing, remember to subscribe to the channel, because this is only the beginning, and what comes next will change everything. The night stretched long and merciless as the woman who finally told him her name was Naya revealed the truth piece by piece, each word cutting deeper than the last, explaining that the child she sought to protect was marked for death by those who feared unity more than war, a boy born of two worlds, a living bridge between Apache blood and the settlers who had stolen their land. And Jacob listened in silence, knowing exactly why she had come to him, because years ago, before he became a ghost hiding behind fences and dust, he had once believed peace was possible, had once guided negotiations between tribes and ranchers, until greed turned those talks into an ambush. And while Jacob survived that night, others did not, including Naya's brother, whose death became a scar etched into her soul. And yet she had still come to him, not for revenge but for help, because the hunters coming for the boy would not stop, and Jacob was the only man who knew their tactics, their trails, their cruelty. And as dawn broke over the desert, painting the world gold and unforgiving, Jacob faced a choice that would define the rest of his life, to remain the man who ran or become the man who returned. And when he finally saddled his horse and rode out beside Naya, every mile closer to Apache territory stripped away the lies he had built around himself, forcing him to confront memories of gunfire, broken treaties, in the face of a woman he loved who believed he was better than he ever allowed himself to be. And when the hunters finally found them near the dry riverbed, the air exploded into chaos, bullets tearing through dust, horses screaming, and in that violent clash, Jacob understood the true meaning of Naya's request, not just to save a child, but to stand, to be seen, to answer for the man he once was. And when it was over, when the dust settled and the boy stood alive behind them, eyes wide but unbroken, Jacob Cole felt something he hadn't felt in decades, purpose. And as they crossed into Apache land under a sky heavy with stars, Jacob knew he would never return to the life he left behind, because some doors once opened can never be closed again. And if you want to know what happens next, whether peace is possible, whether redemption can truly be earned, and whether a stranger's knock can change destiny, subscribe to the channel. Now, because this story doesn't end here, and trust me, the next chapter will leave you speechless.